Thanks for that. So welcome everyone. For those that haven't heard me speak, I'll do a really quick introduction, but like Kerry said, there's a whole heap of recorded webinars that are available anyway. So I'll let you know some of the topics that I have recorded webinars about before, and you can then go and hunt those down. There's always a heap of information available free for HIA members, which is something really excellent that the organisation does for members in terms of helping you with stuff with your business that you definitely did not learn in your apprenticeships and in your training. So today we're going to talk about planning for business success, and it is March, but this is really in terms of the industry when things kick off, I suppose, to a large extent. Kids are back at school, people are thinking about what they're going to do for the year, and then hopefully likewise you're thinking, let's make this year in our business a little bit different to how last year was. And so hopefully today we're going to give you some examples of what other businesses have done in the construction and trades sector, and also some really simple ways to break things down and create a bit of a business plan that's going to work, that's going to give you a different year this year than you had last year, and wouldn't that be great? So let's get started. So the purpose with this workshop, and everything that I do in particular, and I know with the HIA to a larger extent as well, it's all really outcome based, and it's a bit meat and potatoes, if you like, I like to say. So what we want to do with this workshop is we want to put you in a place where you can actually start to put together a draft of a realistic business plan that you're able to use in your business. We're going to go through a little bit of a health check or a self-assessment on your business and different parts of it so that you know what needs to go in the plan. Where are you doing well, where are you not doing well, and what needs to go in your business plan. We're going to go through how to set some goals that are achievable. So there's nothing worse than having lofty goals that never actually get hit and just makes you feel worse and you never set a goal again. So we're going to talk about how can you set some goals that you're actually going to hit and are going to put you in a different place. And most importantly, some tips on how you can stay on track with having a plan that is something that you're going to use. It's not going to get shoved in a bottom drawer, and something, you know, some of the things that are going to make it easy for you to not forget the things that you wanted in March by the time it comes to October and everyone's rushing towards Christmas handovers and things like that. So they're the hopes for this workshop of what you're going to end up with at the end. A little bit about my story, and I've got some photos there just to give me some reminders about what to talk about, but I'll do the really quick version. So in a nutshell, I started 20 years ago in management in franchising, and that was with home services with the gyms group, so gyms mowing, gyms fencing, things like that. After 12 years in that arena, I ran a few divisions with gyms, and then I thought if I ever see a gyms logo again, it's going to be too soon. So I left and became a business coach that specialised in builders and trades. Through that, I started working with the HIA, and I've now been speaking for the HIA for about 8 years on a whole heap of different topics. I also own 2 businesses myself. One of those is a health clinic, which has nothing to do with construction, but still has 40 staff and still is a service-based business. So there's definitely some examples that I pull over from that business. And that business turns over about $1 million. And then I also have a marketing business called Elemental Solutions, which is about helping small businesses get their marketing under control without having to spend a lot on marketing agency fees. And so through having both those businesses, what it does is it puts me, particularly with the marketing one, in touch with other people in this industry, in trades and construction. And most of my clients by far are happy for me to share that information with other people. So we can give you some real life examples. I've also, when I was a business coach, won quite a few awards, which we don't need to talk about other than the one that I am proud of, which is called Best Client Results, which is not about me, but about my clients doing really well. And so that's one I'm really proud of. I won that for the world out of about 1,200 coaches. So hopefully that tells you that some of the information I'm going to give you has been tried and tested on real businesses, which is really the basic thing. We don't want to talk about theory here. We want to talk about things that have actually worked for small businesses, family businesses, builders, tradies, people that have got no staff, 1 or 2 staff, 6 staff, 20 staff, somewhere around there. And what are some things that are actually going to work for you rather than just being fluff and theory. So why have a plan? And I would encourage you to think about this, and you can certainly share these things with Kerry too if you want to type them into the text box and she'll pop onto the microphone and let me know. But I would love to know why you guys are here. What did you identify when you saw the advertising for this workshop? What did you identify as going, yes, this year we need to have a business plan? And why do you think that? And what do you hope to have different out of having a business plan? So why are you thinking this is the year where we're going to have something formal in place to have some sort of plan for how this year's going to go. So anyone wants to share that can type it in the box, and then Kerry will pop over and let me know. But I'm more than happy for you to also just think of that for yourself, is what's your goal in having a business plan. Is there anything there, Kerry, that we need to talk about?
Yeah, there is. Some have come in, so let me just try
Great.
and work out this
Thank you
news.
for participating, guys.
Yeah, Sandra said growing rapidly without a business plan, change from small family business, next generation taking over now. Sarah has said would like to see how they can improve business systems and hear what other small businesses in the trade are doing. Jen has said we are a small family owned and run business that has struggled over the past 2 years to try and get things off the ground and have never known how to do a business plan to try and help ourselves succeed. We know how to build a house, but we want to grow our business. That's great, Jen. George, hi George Bishop.
Hi, George.
Like everybody, would like to get more work and receive some, great tips. VJ has said the industry is getting competitive, so hope to stay to bring efficiencies to stay on top. Lynn has said young blood coming into the business.
Great. So there's some awesome things there, and I'm sure that many of you that haven't spoken have similar things. But so we've got a couple of cases of what we call succession planning, where new people are starting to come into the business, and this is a great time when you're selling it or when you're passing it on. You go, oh, holy, everything's in my head. I can't possibly pass this on to someone else. And so you need to start laying down those systems. It's one of the things. I've got an arborist company who I'm working with to prepare their business for sale right now. So those are the sorts of things where you might think, okay, it's time that we have some sort of plan about systemising. So systemising the business and getting control of it is definitely a reason to have a plan. And some of the things we look at in the health check are going to help you realise where you need to do that. Getting the business started, getting it off the ground, getting it moving, not just treading water and doing the same thing every day or every week or every year, but actually making it go in a particular direction is a great reason. Becoming more efficient or becoming more profitable. So any change to the bottom line, either by efficiencies or by growing and marketing. All of these are the sorts of outcomes that you're going to get 1,000-fold better by having something written down. Definitely. So I'll be keen to hear at the end when we come to questions if there's any of those things that you guys want to get out of it that you haven't received examples or ideas about, because some of them, like marketing stuff, we may not touch on a huge amount, then please let me know and we can cover it in the question time, because there is quite a lot that I want to show you today as well. So if there's something that we haven't covered that you wanted to get out of today, make sure you let us know. Okay, so here's my first analogy. So someone who hasn't been on a webinar before, we need to now apologise for some ridiculous analogies that will come, but it helps you to remember the principles that I'm talking about. And so the first one is about celebrating wins. So the first part of doing any plan is reviewing last year's plan and seeing what did we do well and what didn't we do well and what didn't we do at all. And then for me, the first part of looking at last year is not to start hammering ourselves about all the things we didn't do well, but to actually start by celebrating the wins. And the reason I've got a little puppy there is because what I mean by that is we all know logically, maybe not emotionally, but we all know logically that if we reward people for doing the right thing, that's more likely to get the same response than if we punish them for doing the wrong thing. And it's the same with your business. So what I want you to do is I want you to reward your business when it goes to the toilet on the grass instead of punishing it when it goes to the toilet on the carpet. So what I mean by that is we want to look at last year and go, yeah, we didn't make the profit that we thought we were going to make, but do you know what? We had twice as many inquiries as we had the year before. How did we do that? How can we replicate it? Let's really take time to celebrate the wins. So if the win is the fact that you're still in business after having an awful year last year, that's still okay. What are the things that we can celebrate before we start looking at the things that we did wrong? Because what that's going to do is create an excitement amongst the whole team about having even bigger wins this year, and a habit of looking for the things that we did well and repeating them. So this is just to do for yourselves, and this is something you may want to go back to the recording later and go through these next few slides anyway, but you can certainly make notes as we're going through now. And so this is looking in the rear vision mirror, because once you've looked in the rear vision mirror, then we can look ahead with a bit more education and a bit more informed. So what did you achieve last year? What didn't you achieve? and why didn't you achieve those things? So what did you at the start of the year hope or plan or think that you might want to do and it didn't happen, and what was the roadblocks and what was the obstacles that made that not happen, and what things did you achieve, and how did your team come together to make those things happen? So even just for now, if you do have a pen and paper, write one good thing that happened last year, and then next to it put why you think that happened, and then one bad thing that happened last year or one thing that didn't go to plan, and why do you think that happened? And it may be that it's you as the owner. Is it something that you need to get better at, or is it something that you need to learn more about, or you need to have some systems or some skills around staying on track with something? And that's okay as well. So to give you some ideas about some of the other things to include in your plan, what I'm going to do is just run through a very, very brief business analysis or a business health check. I have a much more extensive one of these that I can make available for you at the end if you shoot me an email. It's not something that I would circulate in the general population, but for the people that have made the time to attend live today, I have said to Kerry that I can make that available. If it's on the recording, you'd need to go through the HIA and we'll see what we can do. But for the people that are live on this webinar today, if you let me know at the end and you do want to do an in-depth analysis, I can make that spreadsheet available for you. But for today, let's have a look at some of the overview of the business. And this is simply a case of you answering yes, no, or sometimes to some questions about your business, and it's going to give you an idea of maybe where some gaps are and where are some of the things that you need to make sure you include in the business plan this year to make sure that you have a solid and healthy and fully rounded business. So the first part of it we look at is sales. Sales is the only thing that brings money into your business. Everything else takes money out. So sales is super important. I cannot stress this enough. We have an awesome webinar series coming up about sales that will be a 5-part series which we're recording later today. So if sales is a soft spot, please do contact the HIA and contact Kerry with her details and ask about that webinar. So first, we have a full armoury of sales material. We have a portfolio people take to sales. We have questionnaires for people to fill in. We have a survey at the end of a job to make sure someone's happy and collect testimonials. We have a company profile that we can email to people before their appointment. We have a sales process that we follow step by step. So if you don't have all those things that I just reeled off, or some of them don't mean anything to you, don't know what I'm talking about, then the answer is no or some for that one. Our sales are continually increasing, maybe by 1%, maybe by 100%, it doesn't matter. Yes, no, sometimes. Sales are projected, and salespeople, even if that's yourself, are held accountable. How many sales? So if you're a builder, how many projects? If you're a carpenter, how much money worth of work this year? You know, do you have a sales target for how many jobs times how much money? I have an insulation company, and their target was 20 jobs times $1,200 average sale. Now what happened is we marketed that a bit too well, and their average sale is $3,600. So they actually don't need 20, they probably only need under 10, maybe 8. But let's aim for 20 anyway, obviously. But you know, what do you have an idea of how many sales you need to make this year, and is there someone in your business that is responsible for making that happen, even if they have to go get information to do that? So yes, no, maybe. So for you guys, if you are working through this with a pen and paper, you can just write the word sales and write 1, 2, 3, yes, no, and some next to it, and then we can go back through the slides on the recording and you can pick out the things that you need to include in your plan, yeah? Next thing, marketing. Marketing makes sales happen. So these are the 2 things that if you're not making enough money, these are the 2 things that you can definitely start looking at. Or if you're not doing enough work, I should say. If you're doing lots of work and not making enough money, that's a whole different thing that we'll get up to shortly. But if you're not doing enough work, sales and marketing are the things that need to be at the forefront of your plan. So marketing, we have a niche and do not compete on price. In terms of the builders in particular, I would call this a specialty. We have a specialty and do not compete on price. You do not have to have a niche and be the only one in your business, in your industry that does something. You just have to be a specialist. Do you have a specialty, and in that area of specialty, do you not have to compete on price? Are you more likely to win the job because you're a specialist? Yes, no, or sometimes. You track leads, conversion rates and referrals continuously. That pretty much goes without saying. Do you work out where your inquiries are coming from, how many of those turn into an appointment, how many turn into a sale, and how many of those refer you? Yes, no, or sometimes. We only run advertising when we can measure the results, and we do not advertise randomly. So when someone comes to you with some advertising, do you work it out based on how good they sound? Do you work it out based on how nice they are? Do you work it out based on how much money you have in the bank? Or do you work it out on how many inquiries you're going to need to get that to pay for itself and have a way of measuring? Do you run advertising that you know how much it costs you to get an inquiry or to get a client? So yes, no, or maybe. Like I said, we will fly through these, so if you get stuck, please just sing out, let Kerry know, and she can hold me up. If I say something that doesn't make sense, let Kerry know and she can pull me up as well. That's not out of the question. Team. So team is employees or staff or contractors. In terms of contractors, there's some things we talk about how much of part of the team we want to make them, but definitely some of these things you can still do with contractors. So we run regular meetings and team training. Do you train your staff / contractors or employees, and do you have toolbox meetings? Yes, no, maybe. If you have more than one project manager, do you have operations type meetings where you know where every job's up to? That includes that as well. The team has a positive attitude and does not tolerate negativity. Now you should know this yourself anyway, but if people in your team are actively working against the business, then you've got a big culture problem, and it's going to make it very hard for that team to look after your clients the way they need to for your business to do well. So team culture, how is the team culture? Is it good? Yes, no, or sometimes. Our team members are held accountable and take responsibility for their mistakes and never make excuses for performance. So do you have a team that you can leave to do the job without you having to watch over their shoulder or without you having to fix stuff-ups? Can you go away for 2 weeks and leave the business and know that you're not going to come back to a car park? Yes, no, maybe. So this is just giving you some points of what needs to go in the business plan to work on, and the ones that are causing the most pain or the most issues are the ones that we put in the business plan and we fix it, and next year's different. So you see, it's all just one's put in front of the other, if you know what I'm saying. Leadership. Leadership is about you guys as the business owners. We have a clear mission statement. So we know what the business is achieving beyond building a house or renovating a kitchen or removing a tree or building a deck. We have a mission for what the business is going to achieve overall for its time of being in business. Second one, decisions are delegated as far as possible. That could basically say, am I a control freak and hang on to every single decision in the business? And if you do, then decisions are not delegated as far as possible. If you are trying to empower your foreman or your pre-construction person or your project managers or your office manager to make some of the small decisions without having to check with you, and you're working on a way to do that so that you know the right decision's been made but you don't have to actually be involved, then you could say yes or maybe to that one. Ideas for improvement that originate from the team are regularly introduced into the business. So this means when you have a team meeting or that team people are comfortable to approach you and say, this isn't working well, this is really giving me the irrits because it's taking too long or it's being double handled or something. And you say to them, that's okay, what do you think we should do? And they say, I think we should do this. And you go, that's a great idea, I never would have thought of that, let's implement that into the business. So if you in the last year can say that you put 1 or 2 changes into the business that came from the team, then that's a yes, otherwise that's a no. Let me know if there's any questions at the end of this one as well. I'll let you know we're nearly there. Balance. Balance is the most important one because you are the main piece of equipment working for your business. If that piece of equipment does not have downtime and a little bit of maintenance, eventually that thing's going to break down and then everything falls in a heap. So this is actually necessary for your business to keep some balance. So I work less than 50 hours a week. That's still a lot, but I know that there's probably a lot of you on that call, and I know there's a lot of members that I meet that are working far in excess of that, and it starts to impact on family and health and all those sorts of things that then indirectly and over time will impact on your business. Number 2, I exercise regularly and spend some quality time with friends and family. Yes, no, sometimes. I've actually had people that didn't know how to play with their kids by the time they got that time off. So, you know, it's something that if you're happy in yourself, you're going to be a better business owner anyway. I'm putting aside funds to become financially independent. Is some of the money from doing the treadmill thing every day, the hamster wheel, some of that money being siphoned off and going aside to look at investing so that you don't have to always be dependent on that month's profit. And lastly, my days are well planned and I never run on adrenaline. So if you're spending all day, every day putting out fires or dealing with phone calls or dealing with problems, then that would be a no there. If you feel like you start every week or every day knowing what you're going to do that day and that is generally, not perfectly, but that is generally what happens, then you could put a yes or a sometimes there, that you're mostly working to a plan. And so just before we go on to the next one, so that's the end of that health check. And like I say, that is just a taster. It's probably only a third or a quarter of the questions that I would ask in a full in-depth health check, but I think they're the ones that were the most relevant and definitely a starting point. So if you've answered yes to all of those, then you would be going on to do something more in-depth. But for the most part, what that will have given you is some of the areas that you need to include in your business plan to make sure that this year we plug those holes and fill those gaps, and then that it's going to give you a smoother ride, if you know what I'm saying. Did anyone have any questions on any of those points before I move on to the next bit? If you did, just write them through to Kerry quickly now. Is there any questions, Kerry?
I don't have any questions so far. Just remind people that we will be giving out a copy of the slides.
Yep.
And also for people who are a sole trader, I guess it's a little bit different if you're a sole trader.
So if you're a sole trader, you would skip the ones about team, but for the most part, everything else would still be the case. And even in the case of a sole trader, I would suggest that you still do have a team. So most likely your partner is doing something, or you have a bookkeeper, or if you don't, you should have. So there's still some things that you should be passing down some decision making to someone that's helping you with the business. So your bookkeeper, your accountant, you should be at least working with other people in areas that aren't your expertise. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's handy just to have somebody to bounce ideas off as well, so an accountant or bookkeeper.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And there's also lots of groups like BNI, there's CEO groups and round board table groups. Here in Victoria we run group coaching for smaller businesses. So there's lots of ways to surround yourself with other business owners that you can get some feedback as well, and some accountability and something to bounce off to make sure that you still do see yourself as a business, because a sole trader is still a business, definitely. Okay, so looking at why we're going to then take some of these things that we want to work on and turn them into a plan is we're looking at the power of goals. So 70% of people don't have any goals, no written and no verbal and no plan. 27% of people in general have verbal goals, so they've told someone. So you've stood at a barbecue in January and said, yeah, this year we're not going to have any problems with staff, or this year we're going to make enough of a profit to pay off last year's tax, or this year we're going to not have to take the D grade jobs just to keep the guys busy. We're only going to take good jobs that make us a good margin, or whatever it is that you've said to someone. That's a verbal goal. Problem with those obviously is then don't stay front and blind and you do forget them. Look, on average only 3% of people have a written goal. That doesn't have to be a business plan, but it's just a written goal, something that you can refer back to. And they control 98% of the wealth, which makes huge sense, because this thing about having goals and regularly referring back to them and breaking them down into something smaller means you're going to get far more done in 1 year than you are otherwise. And so it's just creating some sort of hook for us to sit on and work on getting somewhere this year. So setting goals. So why are we going to set goals? What type of goals are we looking at? So, I could say set goals, and everyone could set a goal for how much turnover they're going to make this year, or how much money they're going to make this year, or how many jobs they're going to make this year. But it doesn't mean anything to me what your goal is. And so what I would say is just don't pick a squillion, don't have 20 goals, just pick 2, at the most 3, and even 1's okay, just to keep it nice and simple, and make it something that you care about. So something that you care about might be paying off the house. It might be going on a holiday with your family. It might be being able to give all of your team members a pay rise. I've had clients that have wanted to help their team members buy a house. I had a painter that wanted to help all of his 6 guys be able to buy their own house. It might be that you want to be able to hire an estimator so you don't have to work the hours that you're working. Make your goal about removing something that's really causing you distress in the business, and you'll find that that's a really easy one to work towards first. It's much easier to work towards a goal that's going to take away some pain than it is to work to a goal that's just going to make things nice and rosy. Second part of it is enroll the team. So what I'm saying there is if you do have a goal that's about money, what we want to do is we want to relate that back to something that the team's going to also care about. So there's no point in telling the team, for example, that you want to double the amount of money that you're making every week. So we're invoicing $100,000 a month at the moment, or we're invoicing $15,000 a month at the moment, and we want to double it. That's not going to do much in the way of getting your team excited. So what you can say is, look, we want to double the amount of money that we're making a month, and then we want to be able to use that to grow the business so that we're doing more interesting work, or we want to be able to do a profit share on 5% of that and give everyone a Christmas bonus. Or we want to be able to hire an extra labourer so everyone doesn't have to do all of the grunt work themselves, or whatever, some way that everyone in your team can be pulling towards the same goal. In the health business that I have, we have a goal of doing 100 grand a month, and when we hit that goal, we have 35, 36 people clapping and applauding that we've hit that goal, and it's not because they're going to make any extra money, but we know that as a team, everyone has done better in order for that to happen. So really you want to enroll people if it's going to be a financial goal, or make it something about we're going to double the number of clients we've got, and it's not so much about the money, but it's just about the business being bigger. Make it attainable and set markers. So what I mean by that is if your goal is, for example, we're invoicing $15,000 at the moment in our carpentry business and we want to invoice $30,000. This just might be you and your partners helping out or something like that, whatever it might be. Set some markers. Like, okay, the awesome goal is to invoice $30,000 a month. We want to double our income. But let's just applaud ourselves when we get to 22,000, for example, because we know at 22,000 that we're comfortably covering all our debts. We've given ourselves a tiny bit of a pay rise and we're putting a little bit away to start looking at investing. When we get to 30,000, oh God, aren't things going to be easy? We'll be able to put heaps away and we'll be able to do all the things we want to do. But at 22, we're going to start to be super comfortable. So let's set that as the first marker that we are able to pat ourselves on the back and say we've achieved our first goal. So set your goal as the ultimate, but then also set some markers along the way so that you have an opportunity to celebrate a win and pat yourself on the back and say we've sort of got a little bit of the way there. And you want your goals to be SMART. So you've probably heard the term SMART goals before. I'm going to break this down so that when you get a copy of the slides you can see this. But SMART goals are just something that you're actually able to identify and say yes or no, did I achieve the goal, if that makes sense. So SMART goals. So here's something that I have pinched, which should give you an idea. So SMART goals are specific. So you know exactly what you're going for. It needs to be measurable. You need to know yes or no, did you achieve it? It needs to be attainable. So a bit of a stretch, but something that is not unrealistic. So there you go, realistic. The time frame and the goal need to be realistic based on what you've done before. Don't shoot for a 30% growth if in the past you've only done 2%. Make it something realistic, and then when you get to it, guess what? Someone like me, this is the business coach in me, does this to everyone, all my clients. As soon as we hit a goal, we celebrate it, and then the next week we come back and go, well, if we can do that now, what can we do? So make it realistic, hit the goal, and then guess what? Someone's going to make you put it up once you've got to it. And timely. Do you have a time frame? And that time frame is going to help you be accountable. So we'll talk about breaking the time frame down in a second. But what you want to do is you want to have a deadline by when your goal is to be achieved by. So I want to take the kids to the Gold Coast for a week, and we want to spend $10,000, and we need to have that by October so we can book it. That's the example of a specific SMART goal. And then what we would do is break that down into, okay, we've got to have 5,000 put away by July or whatever it might be. Excuse me. Okay, so in terms of goals, how do we set some goals? So what I'm going to do is give you some prompts, and again, this will be in the slides that come out to you. So it's sorts of goals that you can have. So the first one, and the one that is probably the most inspiring and the most likely that you're going to really stick to your plan and pull all the stops out to be able to achieve it is family stuff. You know, do you have a goal of reducing your working hours by 10 hours a week so you can go to the kids' basketball? Do you have a goal of being able to do 2 school pickups a week? Do you have a goal of taking the family on a holiday? Those are the sorts of things that are going to really be a really immeasurable reward for achieving your goal. So they can be a really good first one to work towards. It doesn't have to just be about money. It can definitely be about time. So I've had a client who was in skip bins and they decided that they were going to take their family to Queensland 18 months time, not to Queensland, sorry, to Disneyland in 18 months time. And they actually, at my encouragement, told their kids about that. And they had 4 kids. Now, do you reckon that their 4 kids didn't ask them about that every single week? And so it really kept them on track and they, as far as I know, did it. Health and fitness, do you have any goals around your own health? It's, again, important that you keep yourself as a well-oiled machine in terms of the business because you can't afford to break down for your family and also for your business. So what do you need to do in that area? Money, so this is where we can get to money, having a goal about setting some money aside for investments, having some money in the bank for security, paying off an overdraft so the business is more secure, being financially free so you're not depending on each week's paycheck to come in. These are all things most of the time moving away from pain. You know, I want to stop having to worry about money. I want to stop having to pay the overdraft. I want to stop having to pay this credit card. Those are some sorts of things that can be really rewarding if you achieve them as well. And things about yourself. So let's not forget ourselves. We look at our family and our business and our team, but let's not forget ourselves in all of this mix and go, what do you actually want for yourself? You know, did you used to play golf and you never get to do that anymore? I had a builder in insurance repairs, very large business, who just wanted to get back out on the boat and go fishing every now and again, hadn't done it for years. And so again, just send me photos when he was out fishing, and I love those photos because he worked so hard for that. Social, do you have mates that you haven't caught up with in forever? You know, do you want to get back into a sport that you just couldn't get to the basketball games, or you couldn't get to the, you know, whatever it is? And education, do you want to learn a bit more about a particular area? Do you want to go and learn a language? Do you want to go and do a uni degree? Or, you know, or do you just want to learn a bit more about understanding the money side of your business? Or what are some goals around things that you want to see different? You know, what things do you need to know to be able to be the owner that's going to make this year different? Then we look at a mission statement. So we talked about a mission statement. And the mission statement is, I guess, the point of your business plan. So if a business plan has a point, then the point of that plan is a mission statement. And the mission statement is about, like I've got in brackets there, is about the world. So the mission statement is, why is your business here in terms of what does it give the world? And I know that sounds a bit lofty, but it really has to be like that. You know, here's an example of the HIA mission statement. So most often the mission statement is about clients, it's about giving money back, you know, giving things back to the community. It's why is your business here in terms of bigger than your business, you know? Why did you go into business in the first place, and what sort of impact do you want that business to have? So examples might be things like, just to use my health business because it's no one's competitor that way, our mission statement is to actually advance the industry in terms of credibility for that particular sector of the health, community, I guess, and to make it a viable option for people going into doing massage for a career or things like that, that they can become, it can be a viable business that they can make money out of. So that's nothing to do with us. This is about what's the impact going to be on the world. The next part is vision. So vision and mission are different. So mission is about what can we do to leave our mark, and vision is about what does the business do for you. So I've shared an example here from one of my, from a business coaching client that I personally have, who's happy for me to share this, and he's overseas for 3 weeks at the moment. His business is running, which is very exciting. But this is just an example of, and I've taken some of the financial stuff out, but it's an example of a vision. So a vision is the aim of your plan. So not the point of your plan, but the aim of your plan, or what are the things that it's going to leave you with. And this is a long-term thing, so 1 year to 5 years. This is not about breaking things right down to the minuscule just yet. This is about, at the end of the year, how are things going to be different. Okay, now here's some specific goals. So again, what you can do is actually print these slides out and write some of these down, but I would not suggest that all of these need to be your goals. You only want to have a couple of goals, like I said, 2, maybe 3, no more than 3, and 1's okay as well. You do not want to have a squillion goals, but pick out the ones of these that are important to you. So these are all what we would call SMART goals because they're measurable. So turnover for the year. How much money do we want to bring in for the whole year? Number of projects for the year can be another one. The average price per job. So this can be a great one, especially for trades. If you work out all the money you made for the year and then divide it by all the jobs you did for the year, that's going to tell you the average. And you might want to go, okay, well, I'm a painter, for example. I'll use a painter that I know, and his average sale was $3,600, I think. And so that was the goal that really appealed to him because it meant that we were getting better and better jobs and better clients all the time. And I think in the end his average sale was about $36,000, $37,000, which meant that he obviously had heaps of big ones, but he'd also got rid of some of the really small ones that were better to be done by the 1- and 2-man bands. So average price per job can be something about getting your business to reach higher in terms of the type of work it's doing. Conversion rate from inquiry to sales. So if you're currently winning 1 in 10 jobs, do you want to win 1 in 5 and get better at sales and be quoting to better quality people? If you're doing lots and lots of quotes and not winning a huge amount, this is a great one to work on. And there's a couple of webinars in the recorded section that talk about sales, plus the one that we're putting together at the moment that could all help you with that. Marketing. Here's some goals around marketing that you could use in your plan. Number of inquiries per week or per month. Easy one. Maximum cost per sale. So how much do we need to spend in order to win a client? Do we want to look at getting better at marketing and therefore we're going to be able to get more clients for the same money? An ideal client. So you can set a goal for the year of saying, we kind of take everything that we can get at the moment, but by the end of the year we want to only be able to do multi-units, or we only want to be able to do new custom builds that are on the coastline, or we only want to be able to do new builds, we don't want to do any more renos, or whatever it might be. We only want to do people with plans, we only want to do people without plans. If you have an idea of the type of clients you'd like, then that can be your goal for the year too. Financial, so here we go, this is not just about sales, this is about profit. We want to make $100,000 profit for the year. There's your goal, and you work out the bits that are going to make that happen. We want to make average profit per job, so we want to make an average of 25% net profit, gross profit for the job, or we want to be able to make 20% profit for each job. And that can be a good one to stretch for. Debt repayments, we want to pay off our overdraft, we want to pay off our business loan, we want to pay off our credit card. That can be a great goal to have for the year as well, and you start next year without that stress. Then once you've got some of those goals, then you're looking at what are the things that we have to do this year. So this is what I call operational goals. If there's things that you have to do this year, then they should go into your business plan, but they're not particularly strategic things that we're working towards. They're things that we just know that we have to do. If you have a review coming up, if you have you need to hire a new staff member, if you know someone's leaving and you need to replace them, if you have a big project that needs to be finished, all these things can go in your business plan so you're not forgetting about them, but they are operational things. They're just things that we know we have to do. So any things that you have to do, you list down. Then you've got what you want to do. So what you want to do is strategic. So we've already looked at some specific goals, and then we've looked at what we have to do. And now this is what, yeah, that's all great, but how are we going to run differently? How are things going to feel different next year compared to how they feel now? So things like time management, what do we need to do? And these can start to be a little bit less than SMART goals too. You can have things like, you know, feel less stressed about time, or get more done in a day. These strategic is where you can get a little bit more about getting to the end of the year and going, do I feel that? Yes, I feel that. Okay, I've achieved that goal. I hope that makes sense. I need to delegate more things so I don't have to make all the decisions. I need to look at doing some investments. We need to create a specialty and become known for one thing so we don't compete on price. Or succession. You know, we have person A and person B coming into the business to take over or to help us run it. When does that need to happen by? What do we need to do by then? What do we need to find out about that? All of these sorts of things are strategic. So anything that you want to do that's going to make this year different to next year, then those are the things that would go in here. So all these goals start to come together, and you literally dump them all on a piece of paper, and then we work out how we're going to get them into a business plan for the year. And then your business plan for 5 years doesn't need to have the how, it just needs to have the what. So for 5 years away, you just have to have what do we need to do. You don't have to figure out how you're going to do it. You only need to figure out the bit that's right in front of you, one foot in front of the other. Okay, we've now got a gazillion goals, even though I said no, on a piece of paper. How do we prioritise them? So this is how we prioritise them, and this might be something you want to write down because, as you can see, I have used an analogy that's not particularly descriptive. Number one, all of the goals that are the highest priority are the ones that are going to make you money, because those goals are then going to make everything else easier. They create comfort, so you can kind of start buying for the other things. You know, if you've got money, you can hire someone to help you. If you've got money, you can do some better marketing to get better clients, all those sorts of things. The second priority is things that are going to save you money. What are you doing that's not working? The next priority is things that are going to save you time, because again, you can then use that time to turn that time into money. And the last one is things that are going to make things just run better. So things that are going to make things more peaceful. It's going to be smoother operations. You're going to have a better team culture. All these things are hugely important, but not if the business is going down the toilet financially. So what are the things that are just going to make things run better and feel better and work better? They are all still very important, but we need to make sure that the business is making enough money to stay in business first. Next grand analogy is how do you eat an elephant? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so what that tells you is it doesn't matter how big the task is, if we can break it down into small chunks, it is always, always achievable. And this is the only way that hugely successful people, Richard Branson does the same thing with the elephant, you know. He has the same amount of time as you do in a day. Everyone is just breaking it down to get where they need to get. Here's an example of how to do that, and this is what we call a 90-day plan, and this is based on you can get enough done in 90 days to make it worthwhile, but it's not so long that it starts to get a bit, you forgot what you were doing or you feel like you're plugging away at the same thing forever. So to do a plan just for the whole year, it kind of starts to feel like it stretches out and you're not working to short enough deadlines to actually be as efficient as you could, if that makes sense. So 90 days or 3 months we find is just the perfect amount of time to be working on breaking things down that you can kind of get done, but you don't forget what you're doing. Here's a really detailed way of breaking it down that I don't particularly use a lot of the time, but it starts to give you an idea of what is our goal, how do we break it down, and then you can see you can have start dates and finish dates for all of the different things, and you can also allocate people for the different things and then people to support them. And so what you can start to do is you can start to get, if you do have team members or if you have family members or if you have people that are involved in the business, so they can start to look after a couple of these goals for you, and you'll have different people with different priorities that makes it things move faster as a whole. You know, it's called synergy. Everyone's working towards the same goal. We're going to get a much better result than if we have just individual people working towards individual things. So how do we break things down? You know, send a survey to clients, if you have a look at number 4. It then breaks it down to what are the specific tasks. Send a survey with a thank you card. If not getting many back, we have to do a second lot, mail out and offer a $50 voucher. Review the responses, share the responses with the team and find solutions. So that little task of sending a survey out, we've broken that down into 5 things, and you can see that it would be actually quite easy to get different people to help with different parts of that depending on what they've got in terms of time and skills and all those sorts of things. So really, no matter how big the task is, if the task is get twice as much business, you can still break that down. What do we need to do in the first 3 months to end up doubling our business by the end of the year? We probably need to figure out sales and marketing. So you spend your first 3 months getting your sales and marketing to work better, and then you make sure that you can handle the work, and then so on and so on. And by the end of the year, if you haven't doubled your sales, you'll still have made a fair big increase. So we look at a thing called KPIs. So KPIs is purely saying how do we measure whether or not we've achieved it. And so KPI stands for key performance indicators. We don't even need to use that. What you need to know is it is like sport. You can only know whether you're on track if you measure it, and what you can measure you can change. In fact, the minute you start measuring it, you'll notice a direct improvement because you're paying attention to it. So things that are going to be KPI. So KPI is like having a little mini goal that is something that has to be hit all the time, if that makes sense. So if our goal is to have double the amount of sales for the year, and our goal is by in the end of the so by June, our goal is to have $22,000 a month in invoicing, if you remember the example I used before, then we could have a KPI that says, well, to get to 22,000 a week instead of 15,000, sorry, a month instead of 15,000 a month, how much do we need to invoice every week? And how many clients do we need to win every week to be able to do that? Oh, well, we need to get to 22,000 a month, we need to have $5,000 a week in invoicing. Okay, well, how many jobs is that? Okay, we need to have 3 jobs at this amount. And that starts to become a KPI. So we're breaking things right down so that we can measure them every week or every month at the most. And then that becomes what we call a KPI. It becomes a performance indicator to we know, did this week, did this second week in March meet the criteria of what we want to do in terms of our invoicing. Stats and numbers, I love stats. Most people don't love stats, which is why I'm pretty much the only one that does them and get, in terms of businesses that I'm around. But I love stats and numbers because it's a scorecard for your business and you know how things are going. So KPIs can be stats, how did we go, did we win 1 in 10 quotes or did we win 1 in 5? Our goal is to win 1 in 5, but let's make our KPI for the next 3 months instead of winning 1 in 10 to win 1 in 8 or whatever it is, and then measure it, something we can measure so that we can improve. Looking at the whole business, and then you can also break it down to the team and personal. So you can have a KPI for the whole business. So in my health business, the KPI is $100,000 a month or $25,000 a week. But then within that, the team might have individual goals. So we might have our reception has a goal that they ask 80% of clients to give them a referral card when they leave. And that's the goal for the reception team. And then the practitioners might have another goal. In some of the building clients, the business might have a goal to do 2 jobs a month. But then the on-site team might have a goal to finish 1 day ahead of schedule or finish on time or whatever it might be. And then the owner can have goals. I have a personal goal to spend 4 hours a week working on the business on this strategy type stuff. Or I have a goal to knock off at 12 o'clock on Fridays. Now, if you work for yourself, you shouldn't be working Friday afternoons. What is the KPI? Did I, second week of March, knock off at 12 o'clock on Friday? Yes or no? Then next week I get to try again. So a KPI is like a goal, but it's a little mini thing that you can hit every week. The other thing that you can do with those in terms of team is they can have things that they have to do as part of their job. Your estimator has to deliver a job by the deadline. Did they hit it? Yes or no? That becomes a performance indicator for their job. So your foreman needs to finish no more than 2 days past schedule unless there's been something happen. Or these can be KPIs that can be part of your part of the person's job. Your salesperson has to get back to someone within 24 hours. KPI, all those sorts of things. Then you can go in and test and measure those. So once you have those KPIs, there's got to be a way to measure them. So what do you have to write down somewhere? Is there an Excel spreadsheet somewhere? Do people have to come into a meeting and bring the information with them? What is the evidence? What's something on paper that we know if we've hit that goal? If it's a sales goal, do we then sit down and go, how many quotes did we do this month? And do we do that once a month? Me and my partner sit down and have lunch and have sort of a strategy meeting and go, did we hit the sales? Is that something that works for you? Or does it work for you to send information about all the quotes off to a coach or off to your accountant or off to another business owner to report back and go, this month we had 20 inquiries and I turned 2 of them into projects or whatever. So what is the evidence that you're then using to see if you've achieved that particular part of your plan? Here's an example of that, because it might be getting a little bit too theoretical here, which I don't like. And this is an example again from a trades business, I think. And it tells you what is the KPI and then also what is the measurement. So again, you can't have a KPI or a goal. So you see the goal, the KPI and the measurement. You can't have a goal unless you can measure it. So the goal is monthly sales. Increase monthly sales. The goal might be, in terms of the business plan, double monthly sales, whatever it is. The KPI is we have to hit this amount per month in order to get that bigger goal, if that makes sense. And the way we measure that is we get a monthly financial report from the bookkeeper. Monthly quotes. Our goal is to win 4 quotes at 50 grand or plus a month. And the measurement is we're going to keep a register of all the quotes that we do so we don't forget about anyone and we can measure it, and so on and so forth. And so it starts to become something that we've set the goal. We now have a KPI that tells us in the short term whether we've achieved it, yes or no, and we have a way or some evidence of how we're going to measure that. The last thing you want to look at before you start writing this down on paper or as part of the process is having a look at potential obstacles. What tripped you up last year? What's going to trip you up this year? Environmental stuff, personnel. Is someone looking to leave? Is someone got a bad attitude and is going to wreck your chances of making this plan? Is there financial risks? Have you got debts hanging over you that could stuff you up? Have you got clients that you're depending too highly on? If 80% of your business from one client, that's going to then potentially trip you up. Do you have any areas that you need to work on in order to be better, to be able to achieve this plan? And potentially how are we going to get off track? And so all the things that you think could go wrong, it allows you to then have a plan of those before you get stuck into it. So you might, forewarned is forearmed, basically. In terms of getting off track, I don't know if I've covered this in the next slide, but what you want to do is be able to have in your systems a way of reviewing the business plan. So whether you have a meeting once a month, a lot of the time if I have people that are sole operators or just a partnership, like a marriage or 2 business partners or whatever, then I get them to have a lunch or a breakfast. I personally, with one of my business partners, have a breakfast once a month, and we look at the business plan every single time at that, and then we work out who's going to do what and what's the problems. So we look at all the day-to-day stuff, but we always look at the business plan first. So when you have your meetings, look at the business plan first. So putting it all together. So this all goes together, and it can be a handwritten document, and it can be a Word document, it can be an Excel spreadsheet. I don't care, it doesn't matter. I've seen people do it as a post-it notes along the wall, whole piles of post-it notes separated into months. Doesn't matter, it's whatever works for you. If you need a template business plan, you can email me, I can provide you one, or you can Google. Do not get something ginormous that's for a bank. Do not get a 30-page business plan. What you want is something, keep it really simple. Dot points are great unless you're someone that needs the breaking down stuff, and then you want to look at something like the Excel plan that I showed you on the slides. This is going to be a fluid living document. It's going to be something that you can change the next month. Oh, we're not going to hit that, or we've already hit it. We need to change that goal. Make it something that your team's involved with. Have a team meeting and share the business plan with them and make it something that they're seeing. And keep it visible, keep it out, keep it on the wall, keep it somewhere that you can actually keep on track with it. And like I said, review often. So when you have team meetings, when you have a meeting with your accountant, always be referring back to the business plan, and you can always change it if it's wrong. But if it's not wrong, then be reviewing it all of the time. And so just on time, and hopefully, like I say, if something hasn't made sense, we're going to have some time for questions anyway, and you will have a copy of the slides. But in terms of more information, like I said, for the people that have made the time to be on the live webinar today, we want to say thank you. And so a couple of ways we can do that is I do have a book which I would say is absolutely essential reading for all of the reasons that you guys have talked about wanting to get out of having a business plan, and it's called The E-Myth. So if you haven't read it, it is about setting up your business so that it runs like McDonald's in a way. and it is about how do I have systems to make my business run with no stress and run easily and predictably. And I can shoot you a copy of that just for your own use. It's certainly not commercially available for sale, but I can shoot you a copy of that to read through. My email address is there. I need to keep this in a very close knit thing because it's a PDF and it probably, so just send me your email address and I'll shoot it back for you. Also, if you said yes to all of the things in the health check or you want to know in more depth where the gaps are, I can shoot you back a link to do a full business health check. But in terms of more information now, I suppose if you're looking for ideas about a particular strategy, how do I achieve this particular goal, or you need to get tighter on a goal or you have any questions, that we can stay on the line for the webinar now. So I'll hand over to Kerry now to see if there are any questions, and then if you do have some, you can shoot them through on the text box.
Thanks, Catherine. I will run through a few. Now, hopefully everybody knows where to type their questions in, so I will just remind everybody. It should be down on the bottom. I actually don't see it from from your side, but it should be down the bottom and it should either say questions or chat. So just type it in there. Now I'm getting a lot of people.
I think it says chat.
Chat, yes. So just type it in there. That would be great. I am aware that we are on the hours, so if you do have to leave us, thank you very much for staying with us, and please complete the survey at the end. But as Catherine said, she's kindly agreed to stay on the line. We often get a lot of questions at the end, so we will work through those. So it's sometimes handy just to find out what other people are asking about, and sometimes you have they have the same question that you have. So I'll just read through them as I have them. Actually, one thing I did see coming through, you touched on earlier about I guess writing down your goals, and I have read a lot of things on that saying that it's so important to actually put it down in writing or let somebody know about it. Makes you more accountable. And you had a triangle diagram sort of showing those stats, and I was asked if you knew where those stats came from.
I do, but I would have put it on the bottom of the slide, but I couldn't offhand find it. So I will find out for you. If you just keep it details of that member, I'll find out for you and I'll shoot it through. I think you can find it through Google, but I'll find it for you because I was looking for it myself for that exact reason. Okay. I do like my stats and references, but no, let me find it.
Okay, great. And yeah, if you've listened through the webinar and some ideas have come into your head, I'd really love it if you could put it in the chat. You know, I won't read your name out, but maybe something sprang to mind as you're going through this and you thought, actually, that's something I could do, something that's achievable. Because as Catherine said at the beginning, we always like to put down some tips and strategies that are achievable. So if you have come across something and you thought, actually, I might just do that, please drop it into the chat line. I'd really like to see. And as I said, I won't read your name out, but yeah, I think it's really interesting if those stats showing that if you write down your goal, if you actually have something that you can measure, that 9 times out of 10 you're going to actually at least achieve it. So people even joining this webinar.
At least achieve it in part, you know what I mean? You're at least going to you're going to shoot for the moon and hit the stars maybe, but that's okay. You're at least going to be much better off than if you didn't set one.
Yeah, exactly. And I think even, taking the time out to learn about your business, like in a webinar today, really shows that you're probably a few steps ahead of your competition. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you haven't realised it yet, that mindset just needs to be realised as an impact on the business, but just like looking for ways to improve is one of the big factors on a successful business. Someone that's flexible and someone that's looking for ways to improve is invariably going to have some measure of success because you're finding out how to do it right.
Yeah, exactly. And look, if you are a sole trader and you don't have someone to bounce things off, or you want somebody to keep you accountable, you can always write to me. I can always follow up with you, make sure you're staying on track. I can hound you as much as you want me to. So please, I know sometimes you might feel as though you are working on your own. So if you are in that situation, send me an email. More than happy to help you out. I won't necessarily be able to give you any business tips, but I can make sure that you stay on track and perhaps, be somebody you can bounce things off. So now I'm going to read through the questions, so just if you could bear with me because they're sort of coming in quickly and lots of people
Okay,
are.
I was thinking there might not be any, but that's
No,
okay.
they are. We've got a few people, a lot of people asking for the business plan and some of the other things we've talked about. So what I might
Yep,
do is I'll talk to you, or Catherine, we're going to be staying on the line for a while later recording, but we might work
yep,
out a bit of a package we can put together for everybody who's been on, and maybe I'll put together some checklists and things like that as well. So yeah, we'll get that sorted out.
yep. Some of it, it depends, like some of it we don't want to get into direct circulation, so we're keeping it just for the people that were live on today.
Yeah, exactly. So how would you find starting figures if you are starting or have just started your business?
What I would recommend if you've just started your business is that even though you might not feel like it's 100% necessary, is to find yourself a good accountant. And go and explain to them what you're trying to achieve with the business, and they'll be able to give you some stats and things that are industry standards for your particular industry. So they'll be able to tell you what margins you should be aiming for and what average job price and what turnover and all these sorts of things. So that's the first thing, because you can't really drive down Main Street of your town and ask the other builders or the other plumbers or whatever it is how much they make and things like that. So an accountant can be a really easy way of getting those standards and ratios information and figuring out in your industry what should you be shooting for. So that's definitely the first thing. Then the second thing is to work out two things, which is one is how much money do I want to be paid as a wage, and then how much money do I want to make as a profit. And so once you know those two things, how much do I want to earn to live on, and then also how much do I want to have set aside at the end of every month or every year as a profit, then you can start working out how many jobs you need to do and at what price to be able to have the leftover add up to what you need to make, if that makes sense. So you start with what do you need to gain from it, and then you can work backwards to, okay, so I need to do 10 jobs at 20% margin to be able to make that, and that means that I need to get 30 quotes and I need to win 1 in 3. So you start working backwards and you're going to end up with what's the activity to get that result that you want.
Okay, great. Sorry, I was reading through some questions. Ben had a great question. How do you get staff on board with your goals? How much detail should you share with them, figures, etc.?
Particularly, look, I do, and I think the more you are transparent, probably the better outcome you'll get. It's called the boss has a new ute syndrome, right? So if you, particularly if the business, if the business isn't massively profitable, which most of the time before you start doing this stuff, it's not massively profitable. You might be making your 5, 10, 15% profit, but you're probably not making 30% net profit every year after you've paid for everything. And so in those cases, I find that it's actually quite good to say, and I've just sent someone to do this recently, sit down with your team and say, what I'm going to show you is all of the financials for the business, not all, but I'm going to show you how the business works financially. This is how much it costs to keep the doors open every week. This is how much the wages and the factory rent and the vehicles and the da-da-da all cost, and that's how much we need to make just for the business to break even. And a lot of the time they are absolutely shocked and horrified at that amount. And what it means is that if they know that the boss is working, busting their butt to make sure that the business makes that amount so that everyone gets paid, it stops being about the next week you drive in with a new ute and they're like, oh, bloody boss has got a new ute. He's everything for him and we're not getting anything. We haven't even had a pay rise this year, or, whatever it might be. It starts becoming about we're all kind of pulling in the same direction. So I feel like the more you can tell them, the better, and what you'll get is that result where they're working towards a business to make more money without feeling like they're missing out. And then you can look at having things like profit share and stuff like that. But the other part of it is even just getting them involved in making the plan and having a say in what goes into the business plan. And that can be as easy as sitting down with everyone and going, okay, what's not going well, and let's put that in the plan to fix it. So they might say, oh, okay, things are a bit messy on site, no one really knows what they're doing or where they're going, and that can be something that you can then build into the plan. So it can be as easy as the question is, when you have a meeting of any sort, what's going well and what's not going well. So if you sit down and just ask those two questions, then they're going to have some input into your plan, and then you'll find that you're provided that you have people that want to be there, then you're a fair way ahead of having them want to help be part of that plan and making it happen. So it's an ongoing process getting the team culture and getting people enrolled, but those are two things that I definitely recommend.
Okay, Anthony has asked, is there a calculation formula for forecasting the expense on taking on employees?
Forecasting the expense of taking on employees. Yes, and your accountant or even a good bookkeeper, I work with a few bookkeepers that work with a lot of tradies and builders, would be able to give you an idea of that, or even an HR company. So there's some really awesome HR companies that are very, very inexpensive that are around for small businesses. I've got a couple, one's called HR Gurus, one's called HR Advice Online, and they can usually give you an idea of, I want to hire an XYZ, how much is it going to cost me, especially if you're talking about employees in construction. How much is it going to cost me with all of these different special allowance and this allowance and that allowance, and how much is it really going to cost? And they can give you what that annual figure is going to be, and then you just get your bookkeeper to tell you how much it is to add tax on. So that can give you an idea of the cost. And even in construction and even under that award, it's actually not as bad as you might be thinking to get someone new to help you. The other way that you can do that is obviously just go through somewhere like Seek and have a look at what the jobs are paying that you're wanting to hire. And then the third thing I'd say about that is don't wait until you can 100% afford someone before you do it, because the time that they free up is going to allow you to focus on bringing in a sale. So depending on if your job is to deal with getting new clients, then the quicker that you can make more of your time for that, the better, because you're probably making $500 an hour when you're doing that. So you really want to try and free yourself up to do that. So you want to, when you can afford someone sort of 50%, 65, 75% of their wage, that's the time to do it. Don't wait till you've got 100% of because you'll end up just overloaded with what you're doing yourself.
Okay. I've had a few questions about, I guess, passing work, delegating work. I guess it's great in theory, and we often talk about it, don't we, freeing yourself up or outsourcing, but it's not necessarily that easy unless you have some systems in place, and I guess that's what the E-Myth talks about. I have read that book myself, so systemizing and having procedures and having the money, I guess.
Yeah, well, kind of. The E-Myth talks about it. It is the biggest challenge in business, especially in small business. Being a control freak because you built it yourself and just thinking, I'll just do it myself because I'm better at it and it'll be quicker, is the biggest challenge to growing, and most of you will know that. The biggest. There is no massively easy answer because it is a slow process of making sure that you're comfortable that the decision is going to be made correctly. But the thing that I would tell you in terms of giving you an analogy is the evidence versus the process. So if you say to your daughter, you need to go out and mow the lawn and this is how I want you to do it. You have two ways to delegate. You can delegate by watching the process, so you can go sit on the back veranda and watch her mow the lawn and see that she does it right. Or you can ask for evidence. And so evidence is explaining in detail what you want her to do, maybe even showing her a photo of how it would look. So you're giving very clear information about the result, and then you're getting her to go and do it by herself, and then she comes back and she gives you a photo of what she's done. And maybe it's 80% as good as what you would have done, but you know what? You spent that time doing something else, and you can say, that's great, really, really good in this area, but I would like you to do the edges a bit better. And so next time that's what happens, and she brings back a photo again, and you get better and better that way. So what you want to be doing is you want to think, what kind of evidence can I have to know that that person's done things how I want to do them? And that's a great tool for delegating. The second great tool for delegating is simply a question. So if you're still on this line here, write this question down, and the question is, what do you think we should do? So if you have a foreman that rings you and says, boss, this has happened, what should I do? All you have to do before you say anything else is say, what do you think we should do? Then they will say what they think. They'll either say, I don't know, Okay, but if you did know, what do you think? Or, well, what do you know? What part of it do you know? And we'll figure it out together. Or they'll say something, and they'll either say something that you agree with or something that you disagree with. But either way, you've taught them to think for themselves before they ask you, and then by your answer, you're teaching them to think like you. So if you say, actually, no, I wouldn't do that, I'd prefer that you do this, at least they know in that same situation next time they're going to do what you want and they won't have to ask you. Or you say, actually, yep, that's what I would have done too, which is 90% of what happens. Yeah, actually, that's what I would have done. You see, you already knew. You have my approval, go and do it. So you've taken your part in that decision making from having to actually make the decision to now just having to confirm that it's the right decision. And eventually you'll get to a place where you won't have to do that because you'll both be so comfortable.
Okay, great. Another question I have is, how would you help or give some tips to a sole trader that had a bigger business that has lost their way with massive doubt and lack of self-belief?
Oh,
Takes you back to your
I
coaching
would.
days, I guess.
Oh yeah, well yeah, I'm revisiting those now. I'm back into it, but it, you know, what I would say about that is I would bet that as you know, obviously there's been some tough times that have come out of it, and there was probably lots of stress, and doing things without having a plan, without having any knowledge about how you're meant to do it, which is how most people are fumbling along, is going to cause that. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes that outcome of things not working out is your fault, and sometimes it's your staff, and either way, it's just what happened. I would look at it and say, you know, either I want to stay in business by myself and not have to deal with a team, but how can I be the absolute best at that and get everything I need from it? Or I remember having a team and how good it felt when things were going right. What information do I need to get to make sure that it's done in a planned way and in a careful way this time? And what is my purpose in doing so? You know, what do I get out of being, you don't have to be big just for the sake of it. You can be small and be profitable, but if you gain satisfaction from having a team, I'm a big team person. That's why I have my second, you know, I'm a business coach by myself, but then I have another team business because I prefer, I like having a team. So what are the things that you get out of that? And maybe even talking to some old employees or looking back at the business and what are some of the things that you did that were great as a boss? And, you know, do you owe it to some other people in that industry to be a boss again and be a good boss and, you know, have people have a good environment to work in? So I'd be looking at those sorts of things and going, okay, well, if it is something that I want to do again, A, what information do I need to have to make sure that I don't stuff it up? And B, you know, what satisfaction am I getting out of that and how am I going to, you know, what sort of a leader am I going to be? And make it something that if you can't be passionate about it, then definitely choose something else to do. But if it's something that you're passionate about it, then it might just be a lack of information so that you don't stuff it up.
And I think one of the things you said right at the beginning, which I found really interesting and I thought it was a great tip, was celebrating the wins. And I think sometimes
Yeah.
when we're so wrapped up in our business and you're just struggling to get from job to job that sometimes we forget to do that. Sometimes you've achieved some great stuff and you just need to give yourself a bit of a pat on the back and celebrate those wins, as you said.
And a big one can be in relation to time. Once you have gained some time back, it becomes what we call the new normal. So it can be really easy to think that you are always able to work, knock off at 5 o'clock, when in reality 3 years ago you were there till 7:38. So it really is important to look back at those things and realise that you've come a long way, because otherwise being in business can feel very unrewarding. So if you're able to go, actually, you know what? I am able to go on the school excursions and I am able to only work part-time on the holidays to spend some time with the family. It will make you be grateful that you don't have a full-time 38-hour 9 to 5 job, and that's really important. If you're going to be in business, you've got to see some good points to being in business. Otherwise it can become very disheartening.
Okay, and what if you have a business partner who wants to just keep working harder and harder? That's their idea, I guess, of being successful.
Yeah. Partnerships are so tricky. Partnerships are really hard. And it's always inequitable. Who's working harder, who's contributed more money, who's contributed more time, who's contributed more skill. as soon as it starts to feel inequitable and either partner's not okay with that, that's when things start to go south. So, so say my business partner in the health business, we've been in business for 6 years, and we have to change things up and have mini confrontations a lot of the time to make sure that we're all clear with that, that we both spend different amounts of time in the business. I'm more the business coach type person that comes in and does strategy, and she works in it full time, and we just have to always check in and make sure that those things are equitable. The best thing that you guys could do is still have to have some strategy. So yes, it's okay to say we're going to work harder, but working harder doing the wrong things is completely delusional. So sitting down, if you can't do it alone, sitting down either with a coach or with an accountant or someone like that, or a mediator if you have to work out a business plan for the business, and you know, really look at it too. If things after that you don't feel like you're pulling in the same direction, then you know, looking at how can we make it work so that we're both using our skills in different areas, and maybe you might be the person that's more about strategy and sales and marketing while they're going to go ahead and be operations and just get the work done, and that's okay. Divide and conquer in a partnership is the safest way to do it. But yeah, get someone to help you do the plan so that it's not just the two of you sitting there having opposing views.
Yeah, I think maybe having somebody who can be neutral could help out just to get you back on track.
Yeah.
And last question I have here, unless I have missed one, or if you have one that you have been thinking about, type it in quickly now. But I'm a sole trader and struggle to bounce ideas off my wife as she has a negative view of the business. I want her to be part of the business, but I find it hard work and basically have to micromanage her delegated workload. Looking for advice to manage this better and create less friction.
I'm going to make an assumption, and the assumption is that your partner's doing some of the financial stuff or some of the admin stuff. And if that's incorrect, I do apologise. It's the most common setup. So what I would do is I would be, this is it. It's your business. You can create your own destiny. You can make it have whatever changes you want to have. You don't have to have it how it is. It can be however you design it. You just have to have a plan to get there, you know. And so my thing would be to say, does your partner really want to be involved in the business? And if not, how much do we need to make? What systems do we need to have? What do we need to change to make it that when we go sit down for dinner, we talk about our holiday that we've just had, or we talk about what our kids are doing, because we're not both involved in this business and we're not having to sit here talking about the debt that we have to collect or the client that's gone pear-shaped. What can you do to get someone else who is probably better skilled and enjoys that work more to help you, and that your partner can not be involved in the business? That would, you know, not knowing your individual situation, and I'm happy to chat to you about that, that would be the thing that I recommend. If someone doesn't want to be involved in the business, they're going to be doing a lot of damage. So, you know, look at how can we afford to have someone else do that, and then we can just get back to enjoying a personal relationship without having to be in the business as well.
Okay, and last question I have from Sarah is, when one person wants to move forward and implement marketing and sales strategy and plans to create systems and help free up time, however the other partner struggles to delegate and plan. I guess we see that a lot because a lot of people in our industry are, you know, a partnership, aren't they? And
yeah,
you're not, I guess, sitting down together and working out some of these, your business plan and what you want to achieve and how you're both going to work together and both be on the same page.
Yeah,
really important. Like you said, you do with your business partner.
Absolutely, and I think one of the things, like I said, divide and conquer can be really useful. The ability to plan and to stick to a plan is just a skill the same as any other, and one of you is naturally going to be stronger. If you go listen to the HR webinar that I did, you're going to have two different behaviour types attracted to each other as business partners or as life partners, whatever, and one of them is going to naturally be better at planning. And so what you can do is just, you know, first of all, have a plan that you both agree with, and have a meeting at least once a month where you look at the plan, non-negotiable. In terms of the rest of it, You can definitely have one partner that is more the strategic leader and one partner that's more in charge of operations. So if you have a partner that's not particularly great at following a plan or getting tasks done, then there's nothing wrong with working out a setup where you say, I'll tell you at the start of the week the things that you need to do that contribute to our business plan, and you just do those. If they don't do them, this is a whole other issue that probably needs to go down to a level of talking to us as a coach or talking to someone else in another business. But if it's a case of just being able to break it down and have things in small chunks, the person that's good at planning, it's nothing personal. It's just that one person's better at planning. And so you just go, okay, well, I'll just email you, or I'll just write down for you the 2 things that you have to do to help the business for this week. And you just do those as part of your operations. And for the most part, the rest of your job is to keep the business running without any hiccups, and I'll worry about, you know, the strategic stuff and sales and marketing and those sorts of things. And that's completely fine, just working to strengths.
So, Catherine, have you ever had the situation where you've met a business partner, or you've had a business partner that won't delegate, that you know they should be handing over stuff, but they just won't? And how can you encourage them to do it?
Absolutely. It's almost, you know, I would say almost 100% of the time that's the case. And it depends on the person, and it depends on the situation, and it depends on who you're delegating to. But it's a case of baby steps. It's a case of earning that trust in small sections, and in, like I said, having evidence to show that it can be delegated. If you're faced with a person that just absolutely refuses to delegate anything, then the only way to fix that is to be looking at the other areas of their life that invariably will start slipping as they're growing, and really kind of shining a torch on that. And it's really something, even as a business coach, that can be the most confronting thing and difficult thing to do, because people can stay in denial for quite a long time about being control freaks. And it can really just be a case of saying, well, look, I've noticed that your health's suffering, or I've noticed that you're frustrated that you're not on top of the stuff at home, or I've noticed that you're sad that you had to work every weekend. You know, maybe we can look at some ways. Taking things off your plate, you know, is a great way of putting it. How can we ease your workload so you can do more of the stuff that you're good at? And you're looking at it as a favour rather than saying you're being a control freak, stop it. You're saying, how can we help ease your workload?
Yeah, that probably the gently approach might work a little bit better than, yeah, great.
Yeah, and in a way of how can we help you, as opposed to you doing it wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Like you spoke about earlier, I guess rewarding people for what they're doing well, you know, always gets better results than, and I guess in this situation, rather than pointing out what they're not doing well. Yeah. So as Jen said, you know, people can see it as a criticism, then they'll just shut down, won't they, if they think that you're criticising them. So
yeah.
Anyway,
Absolutely.
I think that we have got through all the questions. I'm sure there's a lot more out there, but you probably still got them in your head, or you didn't want to sort of type them out. But if you do think of something after the webinar, please email them through to me. My email address is kate.wilson@hia.com.au. You're probably sick of seeing my email address, but I will be emailing out shortly when the webinar is available online, and we will be including a few of those bits and pieces we talked about. So thank you for everybody who has, we've got a lot of people who've still stayed on the line. We've been on for a fair while now. So thanks again everybody for joining us, and please have a great afternoon. I think it's afternoon for nearly everyone now, WA almost. Have a great afternoon, and Catherine, thank you once again for joining us.
My pleasure. And just to add quickly, anyone that does feel like they need to work on sales and marketing, do also shoot Kerry an email regarding that webinar, that series that we're working on right now, because it's going to be a cracker.
Yep, exactly. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Okay, thank you.